Welcome to episode number 17 of the Dugout Report. I am here with Yankees reporter Christian Arnold, and I'm interested to hear what he has to say about the Yankees and how they are doing. So welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on and getting the chance to talk to the Yankees. I know I know there's quite a bit to talk about with these guys because it's certainly been an interesting month of August to say the least.
So my first question is, what are your initial thoughts on how the season is going?
Yeah, it's certainly a tale of two halves, right? I mean, you look at the first half Yankees and they look like they looked like world beaters. They were a team that just about nobody could find a way to beat, and they found every different way in the book to pull out wins. In the second half, since the All-Star break, it's certainly been a much different team, much different feel to the roster. Everyone's kind of been slumping a little bit. The starting pitching rotation has struggled. You look at the bullpen; they've struggled at certain points. Offensively, the Yankees really haven't been able to get much going until recently, I guess you could say. Even that's kind of a bit of a stretch here. They finally get a huge win against Toronto to end that series to avoid getting swept again against an AL East opponent with teams now right up there, chasing them for the AL East division lead. So, that was a huge win the other day to get over Toronto, and especially in the way that they did. And then going into play the Mets, then they go on the road. Certainly a tough schedule ahead of them. It's certainly been an interesting second half of the year for the Yankees, and it's tough to kind of pinpoint what exactly changed over the last couple weeks, to say the least. I mean, you obviously the I should say obviously the offense has struggled. All the things that I mentioned are struggling, but the reason why all of a sudden they've struggled in such a quick fashion seems to have perplexed just about everybody.
Uh, what are your thoughts on the Yankees offense the past 5 games?
Yeah, I mean they're a team that I mean you're finally starting to see them hit a little bit more, which is a good thing. The Yankees really struggle to put runners on and kind of play that small ball a little bit. Obviously, when the Yankees are going, their biggest asset has always been their bats, right? They know how to hit a ton of home runs, and that's how they drive a majority of their runs. So when those guys aren't hitting, and when those guys aren't able to drive in those runs in that manner, the team sort of struggles a little bit, and you've seen them kind of get back to a little bit of a small ball mentality, so to speak, there where they're hitting, getting guys on base. They're starting to hit more home runs as well, and that's kind of contributed to wins over, recently over the recent stretch as well. But you're seeing them be more a little bit aggressive at bat just to get guys on base, and I think that's at least a positive sign because that's something the Yankees have really needed to do, especially down here, sort of hitting the stretch run of the season. So that's at least a positive sign to see them starting to do that a bit more and be a bit more competitive when it comes to just getting runners on.
What were your thoughts on the game yesterday?
Yeah, I mean that was a monumental win. Benintendi gets sort of that Yankee Stadium moment where he gets to play the hero and kind of has that moment where all right, he's here and he's a Yankee now. He's obviously been playing a lot better recently too. You saw him as one of the few guys that was getting hits consistently over the last couple games and getting on base and at least giving the Yankees an opportunity to drive in runs. But to get the win yesterday over the Blue Jays, like I said, to avoid that sweep was monumental because the Yankees stranglehold, or what was a stranglehold over the American League East, certainly diminished quite a bit. And so to kind of stave off the Blue Jays at least one game was a huge thing, and to do it in that manner, I think also kind of was necessary. It was needed. The Yankees' last two wins have kind of been these sort of gutted out, gritty victories that they've had to dig deep to pull out. And I think that's kind of been the Yankees' identity over the course of the regular season. And when they've been at their best, they've kind of shown that no quit attitude that they're always in it, that even when they're down a couple runs, it's not over. and they've kind of gotten away from that during this stretch over the last really since the All-Star break, where that hasn't really been the case, and you haven't really been able to count on the Yankees to kind of battle back. So those are monumental wins there for them to kind of scrap it out and get a win like that, especially on such a significant day when they're honoring a guy like Paul O'Neill. Obviously that had to be in the back of their minds as well, knowing what he meant to the organization, knowing what those '90s Yankees teams meant to this area, mean to the fan base still. I think there was also that extra motivation to do right by O'Neill on a day that meant so much to a lot of people.
What are your thoughts on the division?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly picked up a bit, right? Baltimore's certainly been sort of a fun story to watch this year. You look at Toronto and Tampa Bay; they've had playing the Yankees, they've certainly been able to make the gap smaller between them and the rest of the division. So it's certainly made things interesting down the stretch, and it's now hard to count anybody out or see someone possibly catching the Yankees right now. So the AL East for a while it looked like it was just the Yankees and everybody else, right? And now things have kind of flipped on their head a little bit, where teams are getting wins, they're catching up to the Yankees, and they're gonna scrap the rest of the way. You look at Toronto; they know what the implications are for the final month of the season, and kind of them that they need to bear down. Tampa Bay, kind of the same thing. Those are two teams that came into Yankee Stadium, into the Bronx this week, and you could certainly sense that they smell blood in the water, and I think the rest of the division kind of does too. So certainly it's going to be competitive down the stretch, and like I said, that once gigantic division lead that the Yankees had certainly feels a lot smaller, especially with so many teams behind them starting to get into their groove at the right time.
What are your thoughts on this upcoming series against the Mets?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun. The Mets are coming off a big win of their own, and so they are playing some really good baseball right now. The Yankees coming against the Mets, and you certainly can sort of sense, at least from the fan base, that this is going to be an important series and mean a lot. Obviously, the Subway Series games always do, but with the two teams playing the way they are, with the Mets playing so well and the Yankees trying to get out of the funk, this series is going to be certainly interesting. You have the Mets with two of their best pitchers on the mound going as well, which will make it absolutely tough for the Yankees to try and pull out a couple wins here over the next 2 days. That's even if they get a game in on Monday night, considering the weather forecasted for that start time. So you could be looking at a doubleheader on Tuesday too, considering depending on how the weather plays out. And then obviously you look at who's going on the mound for the Yankees. You have Frankie Montas going out for one of those games, and he's kind of had a rough start to his Yankee career, right? He's someone that obviously wants to get the ship in the right direction. And while he's had some good innings, you certainly sort of there's been a lot left to be desired with Montas and kind of what he was billed to be coming into the Bronx once they traded for him from the Athletics. So, you can definitely count on him wanting to have his best stuff going against the Mets. Now one of the best teams in baseball. They've been one of the best teams in baseball all season, but really, I think they're like the second best team in baseball at the moment. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then from a Yankee perspective as well, we saw this with the win over the Tampa Bay Rays. Can they figure out how to maintain that momentum and maintain that offensive stability that they had in one game where they were able to get a win? So it's going to be a fun series. I mean, these are always fun series for the Yankees and the Mets, and when baseball and when these two teams are playing at their best, that's all you could ask for. That's one of the best things you could ask for as a baseball fan in New York, as a Met or Yankee fan in New York, is when these two teams are good at the same time, and you have competitive meetings in the regular season that actually mean something. And these upcoming games, they mean something.
Uh, what are your thoughts on Aaron Boone's decisions?
I think that's the $1 million question, right? As someone who's covered a lot of different sports and a lot of different teams, and coming off covering the Nets over the winter and the spring, it certainly seems like there's a couple coaches and managers in this town that catch a lot of scrutiny for the decision making, right and wrong. Boone has certainly made a couple interesting decisions, to say the least. I think that overall, I know fans are quick to kind of jump on him at the moment because of where things are and how the Yankees have produced over the last, or not have not produced over the last month or so. But obviously, there's going to be some mistakes made. He's Aaron Boone is not immune to doing that, but I don't know if he's the guy that needs to be jumped on as much in this scenario with how the Yankees have played. You're always going to question whether of putting certain guys in games, going to the bullpen at certain points in the game, leaving start out for as long as he does at certain points in the game. There's always going to be decisions that are second guessed by the fans, by the media, by everyone. But overall, considering where the Yankees have been, and he's a big part of why they've been so successful, for sure. It's hard to kind of criticize Aaron Boone too much, even with this stretch that they're on right now, considering where he's gotten this team at the beginning of the year, and the cushion that he was able to help get them to going into the All-Star break, where you have not the ability, I guess. The ability is not the right phrasing, but you have the wiggle room, so to speak, to kind of have a slump like this and figure it out and try and get guys out of it. One thing I will say has kind of been his decision as far as the lineup goes, to continue to put a guy like Aaron Judge up there second in the batting order, or even I think at a point he was having bat leadoff every once in a while. I thought that was kind of an interesting decision. Not sure it's one I would do. I've always kind of, especially with the way they were playing now, and you saw Boone kind of go to it more recently, was you put guys like LeMahieu, Benintendi up there at the top of the order and move Judge down to the 3 slot, the 4 spot potentially. That's something I maybe would have done a little sooner. And I think even with some of the bad Yankee games that they've played, when Boone has done that, and you've seen, at least for a period of time, they've been able to get guys on base and they've been able to generate some hits and some opportunities. So I certainly understand the criticism that Boone gets with some of his decision making, but at the same time, you have to look at the bigger picture and what the Yankees have been able to do over the course of this season so far, and it's hard to not say that his decision making has also been a part of why they've been so successful as well.
And my last question is, once the Yankees get a playoff ticket, how far do you think they can go?
Yeah, I mean, I think, dude, that's the other big question, right? Look, I think that if the Yankees can figure out how to be consistent at getting on base and get out of this slump, I still don't think it's hard to envision them getting to the World Series, or at the very least the AL Championship Series this year. I mean, this Yankee team is too good all around for them not to figure this out and get to a point where they can be successful in the postseason. Excuse me, be successful in the postseason and be able to make a deep run. I mean, you just look at the lineup and you look at the talent that they have, and even with the rotation struggling a bit, and even with the bullpen struggling a bit, if they can find a way to get the right pieces there, I still think this is a team that can compete for World Series title.
It's definitely going to be interesting rest of the season. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk Yankees baseball.
Absolutely, anytime. Happy to do it.
Thank you.